Welcome back to Freedom Friday, where we explore counter narratives of faith, courage, and resilience, stories often hidden in plain sight. Today we meet a man many have never heard of, a soldier, a foreigner in Israel, a messenger who carried a dangerous truth to a powerful king, a man who risked his life to fulfill his duty. He is known simply as the Cushite. The heading of Psalm 7 reads, A Shiggaion or Song of David, which he sang to the Lord concerning Cush, a Benjamite. Some scholars have argued that because the psalm itself is a powerful petition of David, asking God to save him from his enemies, this meant Cush was an enemy of David. But the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary offers a different and more accurate translation. A song of David, it reads, which he sang to the Lord because of the words of Cush, a Benjamite. This description suggests that Cush wasn't David's enemy at all, but someone whose words stirred David to prayer. Also notice, this designation Cush, a Benjamite, indicates he was a Hebrew of African descent, most likely Nubian. So what is the story of Cush the messenger? What message did he bring to the king that resulted in this type of reaction? And what were the circumstances that occasioned it? We'll tackle these questions on today's Freedom Friday. The commander of David's army, Joab, had just violated a direct order. King David, though betrayed by his son Absalom, who was leading a rebellion against him, had ordered his army to deal gently for my sake with the young man Absalom. But Joab, ruthless and pragmatic soldier that he was, found Absalom hanging in a tree from his long hair and killed him anyway. He knew that as long as Absalom lived, he would be a threat to David's throne, and if David was no longer king, he, Joab, would likely lose his position and maybe his life as well. So Joab then gave a command, Cushite, go tell the king what happened today. Usually, giving the king a message of victory after a battle was a great honor. You might be handsomely rewarded for delivering that news. But this was not an honor. This one was a setup. Everyone knew that delivering bad news to the king, especially news of his son's death, when he specifically asked that his son not be killed, was a risky assignment. You might not live to tell another story. But the tall, dark-skinned soldier, glistening with the sweat of his exertions from the fighting that day, bowed his head to Joab, his commander, and ran to deliver the message anyway. In Hebrew eyes, he knew he was still an outsider. He likely received the worst jobs, the least honor, and usually none of the credit. And now he was being asked to deliver a message that no one else wanted to give. As he ran towards David's camp, perhaps he probably remembered his heritage. The Egyptians he knew called his land Tarseti, the land of the bow, due to their prowess with the bow. They were the fierce warriors of Cush. His ancestors traded gold, incense, and ivory in the great cities of Kerma and Thebes. His elders told stories of Zipporah, a Cushite like him, the wife of Moses, and how God defended her when others challenged her place in Israel's story. Perhaps the Cushite ran not only as his duty, but with his dignity. Meanwhile, Ahimaaz, an Israelite from a noble family in Israel, insisted on running with the message too. He persuaded Joab to let him run with the message. Joab warned him that this was not the message he would want to take to the king. Better to let the foreigner do it. Nevertheless, He persuaded Joab, and so he took off and ran. Because he knew a shortcut, he overtook the Cushite by taking that shortcut. When he reached David, Ahimaaz announced the victory but lied about Absalom. This was his plan all along. He figured if he gave David the good news that his army had won the battle, he would be rewarded. So when David asked him about Absalom, he replied, I saw a great commotion, but I don't know what happened. He withheld the truth because he only wanted to deliver the good news so he could be rewarded. But then the Cushite arrived. He stood before the king, and in answer to David's anxious question about the fate of his son, he answered carefully, May the enemies of my lord the king, he said, be as that young man. David understood the message. His son was dead. David wept in private that night. It was this news that caused him to pray Psalm 7. And then we can imagine the Cushite back at the camp that night, his life spared, sitting by the fire with his fellow soldiers, thanking Yahweh that his life had been spared. He had spoken the truth with courage, with humility, and with grace. The story of the Cushite reminds us you don't have to be well known to be significant. You don't have to be an insider to carry the truth. And God honors those who can speak truth to power, even when it could cost them everything. Psalm 7, written in the aftermath of this event, begins, the first verse begins, O Lord my God, in you I take refuge. Maybe this was the legacy of the Cushite, a faithful black messenger who took refuge in the truth, whose words stirred a king and became a prayer. If today's episode stirred your heart, share it with someone seeking truth. And join us next week on Freedom Friday, where we continue uncovering the faith, courage, and resilience of the hidden heroes of the Bible. Until then, remember, truth sets you free, no matter where you come from. This is Freedom Friday, where we tell the whole story because the truth was never meant to be silenced.